Ex-wife conversations. For those with a blended family, how often does your husband or spouse text their ex? Is it normal to have just random conversations throughout the day? I feel like my husband doesn't even text me as much. Not to mention, a couple months ago, she sent him a song by the artist that they used for their first dance about reconciling relationships. It's not that I don't trust him. I just don't trust her, and I think it's inappropriate. What should I do? It's not like I can just go read through his texts. I'd look crazy ridiculous, and honestly, don't think I want to. He always says I can though. And then OP adds a second comment to this, saying, edit to also say, I've never read their messages, so for all I know, it could be about their daughter. But gosh, she's always popping up on his screen. So this is another one of those problems that I think come up really often because of the blended family part of the equation. I know that a lot of people can't help having blended families, and so if you end up in this situation, there's nothing that you can do other than work with what you have. So I get that, but I think it's really sad for everyone because quite a lot of conflict kind of disappears the moment you have an actually stable long-term relationship, marriage, family structure that perseveres over time. But to tackle the actual question, when she says, what should I do? I actually think this is quite a simple answer, and the answer is to talk to your husband. I don't think that this is something that you can avoid. I really hate the statement. It's not that I don't trust him, I just don't trust her, and I think it's inappropriate because it takes two people to make any kind of affair or cheating or relationship of any kind happen. And if you did trust him truly, then you wouldn't have this fear or discomfort with the situation. At the very least, it would, again, if you trusted him, it would be very easy to go up to him and say, hey, what are you guys talking about all day? Or I've noticed that you've been talking to your ex really often lately. Is everything okay? Is your daughter fine? Is there anything I can help with? I think that there are very different ways that you could respond to a situation, that you would respond to a situation if that trust really was there. So I would question that you actually trust your husband in this situation. Either way, the only way out is to talk to him about it. I don't think it's healthy to be trying to, get glimpses of his texts or to try and grab his phone and see if you can read everything without him knowing. I think all of this is totally unnecessary and totally unavoidable. And your gut will know, like if you sit down and actually talk to him about it, you'll know whether there's a problem there that you need to deal with or not. Hopefully not. Some of the comments here are very interesting. The very first one says, I think it honestly depends on their relationship. If they are good friends and they co-parent well, then I don't see a problem with it as long as it's not inappropriate. I know several families who are like this and it works well. And then OP here replies, he always says she is a C word and could care less about her. She treated him really badly prior to cheating on him while she was pregnant, and eventually he left. That's why I don't get it. Now, everyone responds to this comment with, that's a red flag. And there, OP, I would completely agree. That does sound like a pretty big red flag. If people's relationship breaks down in a way that's toxic and unhealthy and with a lot of anger and bitterness, which I'm not surprised by, to be honest, I think that's how a lot of relationships do break down, then I would question, basically his actions don't match up with his words. So if he is really angry at her and he thinks that she was a terrible person and she treated him really badly and she cheated on him and that bitterness is there, then I don't think that they would be texting each other all day, even if it was about their daughter. I think that there would be a desire on both sides, or at the very least from his side, to keep that to a minimum. That said, this comment that you said here about she sent him a song by the artist that they used for their first dance about reconciling relationships, that one also sounds like a bit of a red flag. All of which is to say, I don't think that you would be having this question. I think most women in this situation would not be having this question if their intuition didn't say that there is probably something iffy about the situation going on. And intuition is something that I would trust in these types of relational things, which isn't to say that, hey, I would assume immediately that he's cheating, but that I think your gut says there's something iffy about this situation for a reason. And that's why you absolutely have to talk to him about it. There is this one statement here that I also wanted to point out. If you have a child with someone, they will always be your family. That's why I could never marry or seriously date someone who already had children with someone else. One person replies, I feel the exact same way. And then another person replies to that, this isn't true at all. Just because you share children doesn't mean you're family or have feelings for one another. This is basically encapsulates what I meant when I said I think a lot of these problems are the types of problems that people have in when they have blended families. I think there's always lines that are going to be crossed. There's always going to be this question, like this element of comparison, like we had with the previous case, this element of comparison with the previous relationship where you're like, okay, maybe he liked her more, or maybe she liked him more. Like it doesn't really matter which side of the equation that happens on. They absolutely will always be your family. Like the moment that you share kids with someone, then that person will always be their parent, no matter what you do. And I don't think that it's healthy to try and approach that type of relationship with the perspective of they're not family anymore just because they're your ex. They are 100% going to be your family. At the very least, that's the ideal way of dealing with it. Because if you treat them like family, then you'll also interact with them on a very different level. That said, I think it's fair enough to say just because you share children doesn't mean you still have feelings for one another. Maybe I would not distrust anyone who claims that to be the case. But I do think it's hard. I think it's very difficult to go through the whole process of having kids with someone and then completely switch how you feel about them. And I think that this kind of bitterness and hatred and vitriol that comes up from those relationships breaking down is actually proof of that, because I think either the whole love hate equation being separated by a very thin line. I think that that's where that comes from. So I think that's a little bit dodgy. But yes, I totally understand where this person is coming from with regards to I could never marry or seriously date someone who's already had children with someone else. I hope that she's never in the situation where she has to do that, because that would suck. Or at least it would be a lot more difficult to manage.